And for more on Russia's military strategy, we're joined now by Andriy Dobryansky with the nonprofit Ukrainian Congress Committee of America. Thank you so much for speaking with us tonight. I want to start with Putin personally overseeing nuclear drills with some of Russia's most dangerous weapons, showing off Russia's muscle from the air and land and sea. What do you make of Putin's show of strength here? If he wants to launch a successful invasion and have the military advantage, why signal his strategy? Why not a sneak attack?
Well, in terms of what we saw with those intercontinental missile tests today, this is clearly a sign to the West of please don't try to interfere. We are going to invade. If you do interfere, we have these large missiles that can possibly launch a nuclear strike. Nobody believes that will actually happen. And what I believe the rest of the world is trying to do, as we heard at the White House press conference yesterday, is what exactly are these sanctions that the United States is promising? And who's going to put them on, and when do they go on? Are we waiting until Ukrainian lives are killed? Because so far there have been many Ukrainian lives killed, including in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, so what impact would the sanctions have on Russia? I know we don't even know what they are, and lawmakers here in the U.S. can't even agree on what they are. But what do you think they would? How do you think they would impact Russia? And how would that then trickle down to our allies and to us here in the U.S.?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. We don't know what these sanctions are. And what the White House keeps saying is that there are a broad array of sanctions that are agreed upon internationally, and yet no international government has put those out. We do know what the Congress had wanted to do before the White House stopped it. So a majority of members of the Senate actually voted in favor of immediate sanctions against Russia. So it's not a Republican issue. It's a Democrat-Republican issue. And in fact, the bipartisan Congressional Ukraine Caucus put out a letter to President Biden in December asking that these sanctions need to be put on now. There were specific requests for the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, but there's a broad array of sanctions that already have been discussed. So what we're asking the White House right now is, what are you waiting for these sanctions? And I think you mentioned the cyber attacks. I believe that the White House promised reciprocal cyber attacks if something were to happen.
Okay, so we know what's going on in front of the cameras. We know this show of military might. What do you think is going on behind the scenes? You mentioned the cyber attacks. Russia also known for election interference. What can you tell us about these cyber attacks being reported at the hands of Russia, and what else might be going on behind the scenes?
Right. I mean, the important thing about cyber attacks is what we know from elected leaders in the West, whether it's European or the White House specifically. The State Department specifically 2 weeks ago in testimony to Congress said that any cyber attack would be met in kind. And it's been a year since Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, came out in the White House press room and said that if there are cyber attacks from Russia, this was in response to the interference in the election of 2020 in the United States. Jake Sullivan said if there's any cyber attacks by Russia anywhere in the world, that the United States had the capability to respond seen and unseen. It's been a year since that announcement, and no cyber detectives have detected any kind of attack on Russia to this point. So at this point, it seems like the United States has been saying that they would respond, but so far nothing.
Okay, so what are you hearing from people inside Ukraine? I'm curious if the country is unified in its response, or are there pro-Russian elements inside the country that could pose a threat?
Whatever pro-Russian, if people want to use that term, element there was in Ukraine, even people who are ethnic Russians who live in Ukraine understand that they are better off living in a democratic society like Ukraine, a society that has more to do with the European Union than Russia. So they have more freedom. They can speak their language. They can learn their language more without being repressed as they are in Russia. So that element that Putin would talk about for many, many years and decades even has been completely obliterated by this war. In fact, the taking of Crimea, once that vote was taken, I personally know respected figures in Russia who said that would be the end of Ukrainian-Russian relations for good reason for an entire generation. So this element of trying to see if there's a split in Ukraine, you're not going to see that. You're actually going to see more and more people give donations to those people who are standing up on the front line.
All right, Andriy Dobryansky, thank you very much for your insight. It's always nice to talk to you.
Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.